Yesterday, in my main segment, I started by talking about CNN shutting down much of its international coverage through London. Well, we do have a huge update because shortly after that reporting, it was announced layoffs are coming. Now, in the initial story, they said we can expect a small restructuring or reduction. Now we have the official confirmation here from The Guardian. CNN preparing to make cuts at London-based news operation. Surprise announcement likely to result in at least a dozen employees losing their job. This comes off the heels of another announcement of more layoffs in Atlanta from their health unit, voluntary buyouts of over 100 people, and CNN even moving studios. It's been reported now, I believe it's in this article too, that CNN International is losing, here it is, yeah. Zucker told them the international channel was losing $10 million a year. This is devastating news for CNN. Massive losses, layoffs coming. And it's probably only going to get worse. If they're losing $10 million a year, who's paying for it? Okay, so it's got to be subsidized in some capacity, which means they're going to start cutting. But I've got some reasons why I think CNN may be going down the tubes. First, we've got Jim Acosta basically saying neutrality for the sake of neutrality and admits to being a grandstander. So what do you think is going to happen? It's complicated, but essentially, as CNN struggles, they become more desperate, and in their desperation, it's like sinking in quicksand. You struggle and you actually sink faster. That's what they're doing. They need to stop. Lay back, okay? So you got a quicksand. You lay back and you pull yourself out slow. You don't struggle. So let's take a look at what's going on in London. Before we get started, go to timcast.com/donate if you would like to support my work. I rely on contributions from viewers like you. There's a cryptocurrency address, physical donations through PayPal. A physical address, donations through PayPal. And if you just comment on the video, the engagement really helps. You can share the link and subscribe if you haven't already. So here we have this story. CNN is preparing to make substantial cuts. We read that part and the losses. The cuts come shortly after the long-standing CNN international boss Tony Maddox unexpectedly announced he was leaving the station earlier this month. Viewers of CNN International will see less material produced in London in the short term, with the total amount to be cut by 90 minutes a day. The channel, aimed at a global audience, will instead show more simulcasts of the main U.S. CNN network, extra repeats of the flagship Christiane Amanpour program, and additional programming produced out of CNN's Abu Dhabi office, according to staff at the meeting. However, if you are paying attention to this news and you don't expect more layoffs are coming, well, then you're not paying attention enough, I guess. Or you're wrong. We'll put it plainly. I think we are going to see way more layoffs. Listen, you can't have a company losing $10 million a year and just say, well, everything's fine, I want to keep going. No, cuts are coming. And they need to find $10 million a year to get rid of. Otherwise, they're in deep trouble. They say London-based shows such as the discussion program CNN Talk will be cut completely as the company focuses its British office on its online offering at the expense of its traditional TV channels, which is, it's smart. Because here at the Timcast YouTube channel, I like to point out that CNN is in a downward spiral of decay and destruction. Sure, but it would be unfair of me not to point out that CNN does have a massive YouTube channel, partly because YouTube is propping them up. In fact, I think it's almost entirely because YouTube is propping them up, and I am completely and utterly disgusted by this. But what we're looking at are the Social Blade rankings for CNN. We can see in the last 30 days, they got 102 million views. So they're averaging about 3.4 million views per day. Keeping in mind, it's not single videos. They upload like 5-minute clips of everything they do. And a channel that produces, 24 hours of coverage, they're going to have endless, they do reruns and stuff. Now, I've talked to YouTube, and I said, I am offended greatly over what you're doing with CNN propping them up. You know why? CNN doesn't make videos for YouTube. They do some videos that work on YouTube. For the most part, they do their normal TV garbage, and then they cut it into segments and just upload it to YouTube. And it's the funniest thing, because you'll see a story, you'll see a clip, and when you click it, it starts mid-sentence. Because they're just grabbing a clip and uploading it to YouTube, and then when you search for news, YouTube defaults CNN among others. Google does the same thing. Why? I'm offended by this because there are great creators on YouTube producing actual news who don't get the same treatment. CNN is being subsidized by Google, and CNN doesn't like YouTube and routinely smears, like many other people, independent creators and independent news. Not so much. I don't want to act like CNN's the worst of the worst. No, Vox and everything are worse. But here's the thing. TV is on its way out, so sure, CNN is taking the brunt of that. But let's talk about some of the desperate, disgusting behaviors of some of the worst and most, man, there are some people in this world that I think are truly awful, and Jim Acosta certainly takes the cake in many ways. Now, he's not like a dictator or anything. He's not out there, killing people or hurting babies or anything. He's just a bad dude. He is a bad person who is only interested in himself, and he admits it. He straight up admits it. In the story, he says, where we got here? Okay. According to the book excerpts published by The Guardian, Acosta writes that he opts for the bait during his countless viral confrontations with the president, which he admitted can constitute showboating or grandstanding from time to time that bothers some people. That's him saying, yeah, I know what I'm doing is garbage. Jim Acosta knows that he is a garbage person doing garbage content, and he's not a journalist. He knows that he's a showboater. When you admit that, do you know what you're saying? You're saying you're doing nothing of substance. You're just getting up in there and trying to put yourself in front. This guy is one of the most damaging things to journalism. I kid you not. Listen, when the president stands up, we need people to ask them questions and put them on the spot. But what do we get? The White House press corps is complete trash. They're garbage, okay? But they're not Jim Acosta. Jim Acosta takes the cake. He takes the garbage cake, swimming through fields of trash. But think about what the White House press corps does, for the most part. I don't want to drag them all through the mud, but for the most part, they talk about hot-button garbage nonsense that we don't need answered. Mr. President, you recently said at an event, something on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about that. How come you never get anyone in the White House press corps? And I shouldn't say never. I'm being hyperbolic. They do this sometimes. I don't want to be a 100% a dick. But where are the real questions, the real investigations? It's all just a dog and pony show. Nobody wants to get their press pass pulled, so they play the game. Well, now Trump's not even having press events, so there you go. And Jim Acosta, you know what? He said he saw the trash. Listen, let me stop and back up. Public relations for everything, everywhere. It's a lie. It's all lies. It's always been lies. You think when there's an oil spill and Exxon comes out and says, we are sorry, they're really sorry? No, they're not. You think when there's a scandal, a celebrity, and they say something, they're sorry? No, they're not. And this goes for everyone, including President Trump, Ocasio-Cortez. I don't care. Look at that stupid farting cows thing that Ocasio-Cortez puts out. And then she comes out, no, that was a mistake from an intern. Oh, shut up. You're all liars. These people disgust me. Well, Jim Acosta saw that and said, hold my beer. And he decided, you know what? If the world's full of garbage, why don't I just be the garbage man? And be like, I mean, literally made of garbage. Here's a guy. Man, I really don't like this guy. Because what he does is get in the way of everybody else. Now, I guess I can say this. There is a point to be made that if we are swimming in fields of trash, it doesn't matter if he does it or not, because it's not like anyone's doing a good job anyway. The media is full of garbage lies. They think they're the bastions, the heralds of truth. They think they're smarter and better. And this was proven to be false when Ian Bremmer, NYU political scientist or something, contributor to Time magazine, published a fake Trump quote. And all of these journalists lined up to condemn Trump for this quote. Trump never said it. They just didn't bother fact checking. So I guess I can give that one to Acosta. If you're going to have a bunch of people parroting garbage nonsense from Twitter without fact checking, well, then can you really blame Acosta for saying everything's trash? Why don't I be the king of the trash pile? I can't necessarily blame him. I still think he's the trash king, standing atop his tower of garbage with his garbage scepter, waving his glorious crown amongst his garbage people. But I do love this. Fox News has been repeatedly running articles about this. Struggling CNN reportedly shakes up London operation on heels of health unit layoffs. Yes, because you've watched Tucker Carlson, I'd imagine, at some point, and he loves dragging CNN. CNN is just awful. They're doing so poorly. Their ratings are really bad. In daytime, I believe the ratings for last week in daytime, they actually surpassed in the key demo MSNBC. But prime time, they just can't cut it. So I don't even know what CNN is. I don't even know why CNN is bothering at this point. They're losing $10 million a year on the international venture. Well, you gotta realize you're doing something wrong. Unfortunately, they don't. And we'll bring it back to Mr. Acosta here. Because as I pointed out earlier, this is what happens. CNN is failing. This is the video, essentially an addendum to the video I made yesterday, that The collapse is driving these companies insane. They're losing their goddamn minds. Acosta is the perfect example of the psychosis of the collapse of media. Look at his behavior. He even admits it. It's like, I feel like this is a guy who's watching everything collapse, and he's like, well, at least I can climb to the top of the ship before it sinks, right? And then by the time he jumps off, then he's going to try and land somewhere else. He's putting out a book. He's trying to get a TV show. That's what we all think, right? But this is what's happening. The media is going nuts. So they're doubling down. All of these people at CNN, the way I see it, are just saying, you know what? I'm going to take care of me. Because when it comes, like I made this video yesterday about Mount Everest and survival. When you're on Mount Everest and your oxygen runs out, don't expect anybody else to give you any oxygen. They're not going to die for you. And that's what's happening with Jim Acosta and CNN. They're going insane. So what do? They dedicate segments to making, to ragging on InfoWars and things like this and tweets from the president instead of doing anything really substantive. They're just like, oh, and what's frustrating about it? It's all wrong. It's all lies. I feel like when I watch CNN, it's them saying, we're going to go as crazy as possible, desperate to squeeze the last drop of viewership out of this, sponge. And what that does is it makes regular people slowly back away like these people have lost their minds. Absolutely lost their minds. So it's not going to help their ratings. The ratings are going down. Their content is trash. They're losing money. They're laying people off. And then when you get Jim Acosta standing up admitting he's a piece of trash, well, don't be surprised when it all comes crashing down faster. I think CNN has an opportunity to save itself. I really do. Unfortunately, like I mentioned earlier, when people get stuck in quicksand, they start struggling. I don't know, that's probably like an urban legend or whatever. But the point is, you understand the metaphor. Is it a metaphor or is that an analogy? I don't know, whatever. People stand in quicksand, they start shaking violently, and they get sucked down faster. And that's what they're doing. If they would just calm down and do some legit news, they might actually survive this one. But they're not going to. They don't know how, and so they're going insane, and they're putting Jim Acosta right up in front, leading the ship as it goes off that waterfall cliff. Goodbye. Anyway, stick around. I got more segments coming up later today. Next one will be at 1 p.m. on this channel. For those in the podcast, it will be starting shortly, and I will see you then.